And welcome back to Luminary Leaders Live. My name is Shelley Harrison, and I'm your host today. And I have a fabulous guest, and you can see her right next to me. I just want to mention that we are streaming live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and this recording and show will also be uploaded to all your favorite podcast apps. So be sure to catch it later, or if you're able to stay with us, then you're going to enjoy a great show. I have, like I had mentioned, Cynthia Covey Haller next to me. And a lot of you will recognize that she's actually the eldest daughter to Dr. Stephen R. Covey, who unfortunately passed away, I think 12 years ago, about 12 years ago, Cynthia.
Yeah, it's coming on. 11 years this year. So
11 years. Yeah. So we will, but what I'd like to do is introduce Cynthia. And Cynthia, welcome to Luminary Leaders Live.
Thank you so much, Shelley, for having me on. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Yeah. And I know we're going to talk about the book, which I have finished. My husband also read the book, and I've recommended it to many, many friends. And it's Live Life in Crescendo, and your most important work is ahead of you. And let's talk about that. I know this is the book here. In fact, I'm going to put it. So this is the book. And it is just a fascinating book, and so many, things and lessons that I've learned in the book. And I'd love for you to share, Cynthia. Just let's hear about, what you're up to and how this book came to be.
I'd love to share that. Well, just personally, I was just telling Shelley before we went on that we have a great thing in our family. My youngest son and his wife just had twin little girls.
Yes, congratulations. That is amazing.
Lots of grandkids. These are the youngest, so we're really happy to have them here, healthy and safe. So that's been one, trying to help with them for a little bit. But the backstory on this book is that my father, goes clear back to 2008, and my father was working on several book projects at the same time. And when I came to him one day and foolishly, I realize now, said to him, "Hey, Dad, are you going to write anything as good as the 7 Habits?" and he's like, "Gosh, that's insulting. I wrote that book in 1989.
Gosh,
40 years later, what do you think I've been doing? I still feel like I have a lot to contribute, and I've got some other ideas, and I love the 7 Habits, but that's not my last and final work, and I still have more important work ahead." And I was really impressed with that because, he was, I think he kind of adopted Live Life in Crescendo as his personal mission statement the last 10 years of his life, because people were asking him when he was getting into his 70s, when are you going to retire? You're getting older. And he thought, why should I? I still have passion. I still feel like I want to contribute, and I'm relevant, and I have a lot still ahead to accomplish. So at that point, he asked me if I would take this idea, Live Life in Crescendo, probably because I asked him about 7 Habits and insulted him, but he wanted me to write stories of people who live in crescendo rather than dominion. And I can explain those terms a little later. And he wanted take his ideas and interview him and then write this up. And so we worked together on it for a few years. And then, as you mentioned, he unexpectedly passed away earlier than we ever thought. And so I just made him a promise that I would finish this because it was so, it meant so much to him. And he truly believed it and thought it would give people hope for the future, and that despite failures or even successes, you still have important things to contribute.
That's right.
So I just finished it up, and Simon & Schuster, who published his first book, 7 Habits, has now published his last.
And it is such a masterpiece. I mean, Cynthia, page after page. I love the stories. Some of them I didn't even know about. I heard about them, but then when they're really, clearly put in the book and you get to read, and it could be maybe just a couple of pages, but it's so um, fascinating because when you think about, a lot of us, when we get older, we're working in a career or we leave a career and we want to do something different. Live life in crescendo is really, I think more people are doing this now. And it's just, it's, it's wonderful to see because I think people, that R word of retiring, I think a lot of us are looking at it differently now. Wouldn't you agree?
Totally. And we were
Yeah.
speaking before, and you said you're living in Crescendo.
Yeah.
5 years ago, you wouldn't have seen yourself being a
Yep.
host and interviewing people and doing this. And I had to live in Crescendo to finish the book.
Exactly, exactly. And I have to ask you, so, when you first started after you started the project to complete it, after your dad's sudden passing,
Yeah.
what was going through your mind during that time?
Well, it took 10 years, actually.
Mhm.
I had so
So a lot of thinking. Yeah.
with family and other things I was doing involved in. But I was just motivated. I could just feel him on my shoulder saying, finish this, get it out, because it's a hard time right now with,
Yeah.
so much negativity and so much comparison in the media, in our world, and social media
Yeah.
is so prevalent and prevalent. And it's easy to get down and discouraged. And there's so many great things that are going on, and so many
There
relationships that you
are.
have with people that are inspiring, and so many great things to bring about. And so I was hopeful that I could fulfill this last wish of his. We call it his last big idea before he passed away. And he's living in Crescendo right now with this book out. It's still
Yeah.
legacy continues, and I think he'd be very happy about that.
I
So
I think so too. And when you think of, your dad and just the impact that he had internationally on the entire world with the 7 habits. I mean, I think back in my banking career and I kid you not, we had a workshop just for the 7 habits of highly effective people. So I was introduced to him very early on in my career when I worked at the bank and I've kept it with me all these years, and to see now, you have taken on and really, put this beautiful, book together to complete it. And, here you are, you're living life in crescendo. And as far as, what do you see as far as this particular book? Where do you see it headed within the next 5 years, knowing that it has impacted so many people?
well, 7 Habits has been very impactful. In fact, if you look at the business list, it's still in the top 10. The
Oh
other
my
day,
gosh.
like number 3 or 4, and it has been out. Like I said, for 33 years. It was back in, well, more than that. It was in '89, so
Yeah.
it's a really long time. But the principles are universal, and they're true with everyone. It's universal truths and ideas that resonate with people. And some consider
Mhm.
this his final habit, or capstone is what it's been called, to his
Mhm.
7 habits, because it encompasses so many of the principles that he taught. And he loved to
Mhm.
teach. He was a teacher first, before he became a writer, and always kept that
Oh,
passion for teaching. But
yeah.
to just explain a little bit about the definitions of crescendo versus diminuendo. Are
Mhm.
you into music? Do you like
I love
music?
music. Love, love, love music.
Well, so you know what you've been to a concert, and you know what a crescendo is.
I do. Yeah.
The sign is kind of like this, how it expands and it
Yeah.
grows in volume and energy and vigor, and it increases in power and strength and fills the arena or whatever you're at. It's
Yeah.
incredible to hear a crescendo. And then diminuendo is exactly the opposite. It slows down and it lessens in volume and
Mhm.
power, and it slows to the point where it eventually stops. And so the
Mhm.
challenge in this book is to adopt a crescendo mentality, like a pair of glasses, like if a
Yeah.
paradigm that you would put on, like glasses, that you see a different perspective through. and that when we have life's ups and downs, and we're getting older, or we're in a midlife crisis, or we have had success in our life, but what's next? To realize that, no, I'm going to still keep contributing and keep learning and growing. Sometimes we have to reinvent ourselves. A lot of
we do.
2 or 3 different careers, or something, and sometimes you have to become relevant again, but you're living in crescendo rather diminuendo, where you're shutting down, and not your circle of influence is diminishing. So I use an example in the book, and you probably are familiar with it since you just finished, but it's about a man named Anthony Ray Hinton, who was accused of murdering 2 people in 1989 in Alabama. And he knew he was innocent. He was in a lockdown facility 15 miles from the crimes. But they didn't have anyone to blame, and he somehow got implicated. And because he knew he was innocent, he believed that he would be found innocent, and was just stunned when he literally was convicted of these murders and sent to death row. And so he goes into his prison cell, and he's so angry and bitter that this has happened to him and interrupted his life. As you can imagine how horrific this would be. He takes the Bible and throws it under his bed and determines, I'm done. If they think I murdered these people, I'm going to shut down. And for 3 years, he did not speak a word to anyone, to the guards, to his inmates, to anyone that approached him. Besides family and friends, he was stone silent for 3 years, and miserable, living in diminuendo, no influence, no joy, wasn't expanding, learning, growing, nothing.
Right, miserable. Yeah,
absolutely miserable. So one morning at 2 a.m, he heard the inmate next to him sobbing in his cell, and it awoke in Ray a feeling of compassion that he had suppressed, and he was stunned to realize, I can't choose if I'm on death row or not, but I can choose how I react to it. And he said, anger, hope, compassion, these are all choices. And more than anything else, love is a choice. And so at that moment, he ended up speaking to this prisoner, and he was a total stranger, and comforted him. The man had just found out his mother had passed away, and just could not deal with it. And he gave him the hope to hang on. And it awoke in Ray a feeling of that he was going to renew his faith and hope as well, and be the good person that his own mother had taught him to be. And so found his Bible under his bed again, dusted it off, and the next 27 years, if you can believe, he became a light and a beacon to the inmates around him. He started a book club, got permission from the warden to help transport these prisoners into other places and other characters, to live vicariously through them, and just brought humor and compassion and kindness into that prison. He also made friends with the guards, and they got him in touch with Brian Stevenson, who is the founder of Equal Justice Initiative. Maybe you've seen the book Just Mercy, or the movie Just Mercy. And these people that are justly imprisoned, and so he eventually got him released after almost 30
gives you the chills, for someone to spend that long. But he made the best use of what he could possibly give.
He did. And when he came out, he said to his family and friends, the sun does shine. And 3 years later, that was the title of a New York Times bestseller book, where Ray wrote about his experiences and his journey living on death row. And so you can see, as he made choices and realized, I can't control my circumstances, I'm going to do what I can. His circle of influence expanded. He was able to get in contact with his lawyer, and eventually he was found innocent. And so now today, Ray is still living in Crescendo. He's an advocate and a spokesman for Equal Justice Initiative. He's helping other people that are wrongly accused, and his life is expanding in Crescendo, where before he was shut down. And so that's the greatest example I can think of the difference between living in Crescendo versus living in diminuendo.
Yeah. And there were so many incredible stories in the book. I mean, I literally want to read it again, because it really, it made me feel as though, even though I'm, getting up there in age and so is my husband, but neither of us want to stop. And, we've got a little ways to go. But we talked
You're
when we talked about what do we want to do, my husband's he's a tennis player. In fact, he's playing tonight after work or after he's actually in jury duty. So sorry, Michael. He'll hopefully be able to go play tennis. But that's what really gives you that light where you think, gosh, I'm not done and I have more to do. And I think, this book is so timely because there are a lot of people that are aging that, and some of the stories like Paul Newman, I had no idea. I mean, I thought he was selling, the spaghetti sauce, and I had no clue what he was doing with the proceeds. And I don't know if you want to share that, if you
That's
recall
one
the
of my
story.
favorite stories too. My father was a huge fan of Paul Newman, and
Yeah.
but he had an amazing career and had dozens of movies. But his
Yeah.
most meaningful work was after his career. He still continued it. He still worked up until when he was 80. He did the
Yeah, he
voice
worked.
of
Yeah, he
Cars.
did.
And still was working. So he never really retired, but he found the greatest joy and meaning in his life through his charities and through his nonprofit, where he was able to sell this salad dressing. And
Or
he said,
salad dressing, not
he said,
spaghetti sauce. I said spaghetti sauce.
well, he
Yeah.
ended up selling spaghetti sauce too. He has dozens of products, but
Yeah.
he started out making this oil and vinegar dressing that everyone loved. And somebody said, "Boy, you could sell this for a lot of money." And he thought, "You can only stuff so many things in your closet. I don't need it." But he said, "What
Yeah.
if we did this for the common good? What if we gave this and we gave all the proceeds away?" And so he and his friend began this, and literally, I'm not sure exactly what they're up to. It's something like $325 million that
That's
he's given to
amazing.
thousands of charities. And his life, he felt like that was the most important. It's true what the book says: your most important work's ahead of you. His greatest
Yeah.
work that brought him the most fulfillment was after his very successful filming career. And
Yeah.
so,
And he made more money with if I remember correctly in the book, he made more money with the salad dressing and all of the, philanthropic work that he was doing than he was as an icon in the film industry and all those, spectacular movies.
that's true. He said, in fact,
Yeah.
it's embarrassing that I've made more money on my salad dressing than my movies.
But
But
good for him, he found like he said, he lived life in Crescendo and found, that his most important work was ahead.
he also founded these camps for children that have these terminal diseases and have
Mm.
illnesses where they suffer all year. And it's these camps that he offers for free to children to come and just be kids. And it's the
Yeah.
largest family camps in the world. And he said one time, and they can just kick back and be kids. And a lot of the year they're in hospitals or having surgeries or in a lot of medication.
Yeah.
And so he said one day he was walking to the dining room and a little girl came up and took his hand and said, "Mr. Newman, this is what I live for all year, this one week."
Oh my gosh.
And he said, "That's the applause. What could be better than that?
That's
Than
right.
reach out your hand and help someone that really needs that."
Right,
So
and to know that someone cares that much to want to do it and help the kids.
right. So you've got the right idea, Shelley, that about my father always thought it was a false dichotomy that you either
Mm.
have to choose between work or retiring. He said the third alternative is make a contribution. And so
Yes.
some
Yeah.
people may work until their career and job until they're in their 90s, and if they
Mm.
they feel like they have passion for it and they're contributing, then that's wonderful. Some may choose to walk away from a career or job, but don't stop contributing. Don't stop making important contributions to people around you. And so
That's
we can
so
all
true.
always do that. We can always contribute if we are still working or if not. And people that are older and have more, think of the wisdom they have, the experience,
Exactly, yes.
the time. I mean, it's the greatest time ever to be able to really contribute, where society is kind of saying, "Okay, you're done. Go sit in the corner now or watch TV, or we don't need you." But look at
Yeah.
the resources resources and the talents that you have to share
That's
with,
right.
and
That's
maybe
right.
many
And
people. So
yeah. And I just want to take a quick commercial break. I want to mention we want to thank our show sponsor, which is Endeavor Mortgage. Dan Leonard is located in Seal Beach with Endeavor Mortgage, and we want to give him a shout out for sponsoring this show. And I'm here with my fantastic guest on this premium episode of Luminary Leaders. We are here with Cynthia Covey Haller. And you might recognize the last name, and she is definitely part of the Dr. Stephen R. Covey franchise, I guess you would say, right? Or the kind of I'm not sure how to phrase it, but I think it's more of a like a community of just people that are part of the Covey family.
yes, I'd say that.
Yeah, yeah. And this is the book that we're talking about today was Live Life in Crescendo, and your most important work is always ahead of you. And you could get the book on Amazon or your favorite bookstore, and it is definitely something that will give you clarity. And especially, those, Cynthia, we were talking, people that really want to make contributions. And, let's talk about that because I know for you, I mean, you just have a wonderful life, I know you were mentioning how many grandchildren you have, where you're located and, you're on family vacations. However, you're still contributing.
Well, I hope to still be. I feel like I'm trying to spread this crescendo mentality idea around, and we struggle like any family with problems and different things that we go through, but
Yeah.
through life changing experiences. And I don't know if you read at the end of the book, I shared 3 of the struggles that our family had, where we had to dig down deep and live a crescendo ourselves. And we all have these opportunities. My father
Mhm.
taught that if you imagine that you're driving along in a car and you've got your hands on the wheel and you're looking ahead, but then you think, okay, I'm going to just keep looking in my rear view mirror. While I'm driving, I'm going to look
Yeah.
behind me, or I'm going to look
That
over
and
my
yeah,
shoulder. I mean, pretty soon you'd end up in a ditch. And
that's
so,
right. That analogy was so, I mean, it was profound when I
yeah,
read it in the book. And I thought, too many people, they look in the rearview mirror. And that's, I mean, in life, when they look behind when they should be in the present and looking forward.
right. You might
Yeah.
look behind at failures and think, oh, look at me. I'm 55 years old and I'm not where I thought I would be. What should I do? I'm stagnant in a stagnant job. I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
A man I share in the book told of that he started a construction company and with some partners and eventually got pushed out. And he's 47 years old and he's unemployed with 4 children.
Mm.
And he's wondering, what am I going to do? He has a choice right there to live in crescendo or diminuendo. And he
Mhm.
decides, I've got to reinvent myself. I've got to get another career. So at 47, he determined to go to law school and it was actually at the University of Utah Law School. And he was the oldest in the class by double other students' age. He says one morning he pulled in at 5 a.m. to a dark parking lot in the middle of winter, and it was freezing cold and pitch black. And he felt the feeling of doom and gloom just settle over him. And he thought to himself, what have I done? I'm 47 years old. I'm just starting law school and felt really bleak about the future. And then he
Yeah.
determined, I'm not going to look in the rearview mirror. I'm looking forward and do what it takes to get this degree and take care of my family and redefine myself. And so he did that. He dug down deep and in 2.5 years worked hard, went to school year round, and at almost 50 years old he graduated in record time and began a new law practice. And he didn't
Gosh.
have any business at first, and he took whatever other lawyers didn't want to do. And then pretty soon, within a couple of years, he had a thriving practice and a brand new promising career. So
Yeah.
there's many
That's an incredible story. Yeah.
times in our lives when we have a life-changing setback. Maybe you
Mhm.
get divorced, maybe you lose your job, maybe you're stagnant and feel like I haven't done anything and my life's half over. So right then is when you have the option, like Ray did, to live in
Yeah.
crescendo or diminuendo, and realize I can't control my circumstances, but I can control how I react to what's happened to me and how I'm going to respond. And then as you act upon that and take the initiative, your circle of influence grows and grows, and good things come of it. You still have a
Yeah, it truly does. And I mean, for that story, when you really think about it, he could have gone down that path of really having a miserable life, but he chose to really take a look at, wait a minute, there are other options. And I think that's what's so important in the book is that, there are so many stories that kind of remind you that people may have some things that have happened to them in the past, but you can move past that and really, help to contribute and, make choices that help other people. And you're going to enjoy what you're doing because you chose that path.
That's true.
Yeah.
Another stage of life, the challenge is in every age and stage of life to keep living in crescendo, keep growing, keep learning, changing, evolving, so that you can still contribute. That's the whole goal. And kind of the mission statement of the book is a great quote by Pablo Picasso that says, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." And so in the book, we're challenging everyone to find your unique mission. My father taught that life is a mission and not a career. Careers and jobs come and go. We can end that, but a mission is what you're about, what is significant to you, how you want to contribute, what your legacy will be. And so the challenge is examine your talents, your abilities, your experience, what you have, what you feel passionate about, and decide with that in mind and being introspective, listening to your conscience, getting feedback from other people. What mission can I fulfill on this earth? How can I make a difference with other people? And that's where, especially as you age, if you fill your life with contributions and they are mostly service to other people, is where you will find your meaning and purpose that will really fill your life.
Yes, I think so. And, I mean, the way that you share about your father and all the wonderful things that he did. I mean, there was a story in the book, and if I remember correctly, it was a trip to San Francisco, and I want to say you were 12. I'd have to look back in the book to make sure of the age. But can you share that briefly with us, that story?
I was actually going to start with that story, so I forgot. Glad you asked me. But I was 12 years old, and I'm the oldest of 9 children. And my father began taking us with him when he began doing consulting. And I was the first to go, and we were going to San Francisco. Well, I'm from Salt Lake City and had never been to San Francisco. And he told me all about the magical trolley cars and how they go up and down those hills and what San Francisco was like and how excited he painted this picture of what we were going to do together. So our plan, and we planned it out. We talked about it. Part of the fun was planning it before we went and did it. But for weeks, we would talk about how, he would be speaking and I would kind of hang out at the hotel and swim and do what I wanted. And then I would meet him back of the room when he was finished, and then we would go on the trolley cars and we'd go up and down and enjoy that, and that we would also go to some of the department stores and buy a school outfit for school. Really fun. And then take a cab over to Chinatown and have some authentic Chinese food, which was our favorite. We both love Chinese food. And then we would hurry back to the hotel just before the pool closed so we could swim for a half hour. And then we'd go up to the room and order a hot fudge sundae and have room service and watch a movie. And so we had this whole night planned. And for a 12-year-old, it was just amazing. I was so excited. So it was going according to plan. I was in the back of the room in the hotel waiting for him to finish, and he was making his way back to me when tragedy struck. He ran into one of his old college friends, and they were so happy to see each other. They probably hadn't seen each other for 10 years, and they embraced. And I heard the friend say, "Oh, Stephen, I'm so glad to see you. I knew you were speaking, and I purposely came. I'd love to steal you away and go down to the wharf, and we could have seafood, have a great night out, and catch up." And he looked back at me and said, "Oh, I've got my daughter here. I brought my daughter on this date." And he said, "Oh, well, she's welcome to join us too." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to spend the whole night with two old people."
Oh my gosh.
Oh no. And I could see my trolley car going down the hill without me, and really
Oh.
expected the worst because my dad was so happy to see his friend. And he
Mhm.
put his hand on his shoulder and said, "Bob, that sounds so fun. I would love to do that with you, but not tonight. Cynthia and I have a special date planned, don't we, honey?" And he winked at me.
Oh.
I saw that trolley car come back up, and he said, and he took my hand, and we were out the door before Bob, his friend, or I even knew it. And I kind of
Oh.
jumped up after and said, "Well, but Dad, that's your good friend. Wouldn't you rather be with him?" I thought, "Why did you
Mm.
spend time with a 12-year-old rather than your friend?" And he said, "Are you kidding me? I wouldn't miss this night for anything. And
Oh
you'd
my
much rather
gosh.
have Chinese food. I know you don't like seafood. You'd rather have Chinese food anyway. So let's go catch that trolley car."
Oh my gosh. And
That's
that's the kind of man that he was. I mean, you could tell it in the way that he communicated on stage and, the way that he embraced life and people.
Well, that
Um,
simple encounter there, really looking back on my childhood, was representative of so many things that he
I bet.
such as
Mm.
building trust and keeping your commitments and honoring of priorities, which I was his
Mhm.
priority that night, and following through, and the power of relationships. And so that was one of the first principles that I learned from him. And this live life in crescendo mentality principle is a powerful one that I felt like this is what I want to share with everyone. His last big idea.
I
So
yeah. I and the book, the different chapters, I know we've covered a few of them from the book. And when you think about what's next for you, Cynthia, you have the book out. I know you're doing book signings, you're out on the, circuit where you're, being hired to speak and talk with audiences across the country. But what do you think is next for you? Let's say within the next 2 or 3 years.
for another adventure too. I want to continue doing this. As I said,
Mhm.
I have to live in crescendo because I've never been on podcasts. I've never spoken. I've never given presentations, and I'm
Yeah,
practicing the mentality as well. But I would really like to develop programs. I've got a program of Live Life Crescendo in education. I just spoke with a
fantastic.
Canadian school district to the principals and vice principals the other day, and I'd like to develop these programs with businesses and with other venues that because it's applicable. It's like the 7 habits. It can
Yeah,
apply to your personal life as well as your professional. And so it's inspiring content, and despite failures and successes, it gives you the opportunity to take what my father called R&I,
mm,
resourcefulness and initiative,
and yeah,
and make it happen for yourself. And
that
we and we
yeah.
we laughed that we used to, as kids, we hated hearing my dad would say, "Use your R&I," which is the initiative. He came home from school and said, "I'm flunking math. I hate my teacher. He's awful, and I'm not doing well." He'd say, "What does that have to do with it? Use your R&I, make it happen." But Dad,
That's a
we
great lesson.
wanted to blame people. We wanted to say, "No, this teacher's really bad. We don't,
Yeah, it's the teacher's fault.
it's his fault." And he was trying to teach. No, you're responsible for your education. Use your
Yeah,
R&I, which meant go in and talk to him, get extra tutoring, get out of his class, get some help after school, do whatever it takes, but you're
yeah.
responsible for your education. And so we kind of laughed that we had a balance between my parents because our dad made us take responsibility and our mom let us blame other people sometimes.
Yeah, so it looks like dad won then, right? Most of the time.
Well, if you wanted your heart massaged, you went to my mom, and if you wanted the
Oh.
truth, you went to my dad. So it was good. It was a good combo.
Oh my gosh.
Now we tell our
Wow.
kids, use your
Yeah,
R&I, make it happen, and they hate
yes.
it too.
Yeah. And what I love about the book, and this was kind of going through my mind, when I read the book, because, Live Life in Crescendo, you would think that it would be for, aging people that are getting close to, living their next chapter. But really, for young people, the stories that are shared in here and the way that it kind of gets your thinking to a point where, oh my gosh, it might be too early. However, there are so many lessons to be learned in the book for young people, millennials.
It's for every age and stage of life. Because
Hmm.
along the way, you will have obstacles and challenges when you're young
Yeah.
and older. I don't. You probably recognize the name of Elizabeth Smart from you,
Yes.
who was kidnapped at
Yeah.
14 and held for 9 months against her will, and was raped and had horrible things happen to her every day. And after she was rescued, her mother told her, he said, what this man has done to you is horrible, and there's no
Yeah.
words to describe how evil this was and how awful that was in your life. But he's taken 9 months from you. Don't let him take one more day. You can
Mm.
feel sorry for yourself and curl up in a ball, and people would understand. You had this horrible thing happen when you're young. Or
Yeah.
you can take charge of your life, and you keep all of the wonderful moments to yourself and don't let him steal one more. And so Elizabeth Smart
Mm.
is incredible. I wrote about her story in the book, that
Yeah, you did.
she
Yeah.
got her education. She graduated from college. She's a harpist. She served a
Mm.
mission for her church. She got married. She's got 3 children, and she started a
Wow.
foundation helping other victims decide you don't
Mm.
have to be a victim. It doesn't have to ruin your life. You
That's
can choose
right.
how to respond to what happened to you, and life can be happy after a terrible tragedy like that.
It
So,
absolutely can. Yeah.
so
Well, and helping other people too, you know?
right.
I mean,
And how
that's
much good that she has done from her terrible tragedy. In fact, I've got a quote in the book that said, "If this horrible thing had not happened to me, I don't know if I would have cared enough to become involved and help other people like this."
that's
And
right.
she's gone on to to save hundreds or thousands maybe of victims, and help them think you don't have to be a victim the rest of your life. You
That's
can choose
right.
another
Yeah.
way. And that was an inspiring story, I felt.
It definitely is inspiring, and, and the point being that, it was 9 months, that those were critical 9 months. She still has the rest of her life to make an impact,
Right. Yeah.
and free of what happened to her.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Incredible. Incredible. And Cynthia, I want to ask you one last question. How can people reach out to you? I know they can get the book, on Amazon or any favorite bookstore, but is there a chance that people might be able to reach out to you if they have stories to share about the book, or,
Sure.
just anything that you'd like to
That's
do?
great. I'm on all the social media, but I like LinkedIn the most. I use LinkedIn
LinkedIn.
all the time, and I'd love to connect that way. And
Yeah.
I just want to challenge listeners to three things really: to believe that, first, that instill hope that, regardless of circumstances, a midlife struggle, or even reaching
Mhm.
the pinnacle of success and wondering, what do I do now? I'm successful. I've made all the money I want. I've as in business, or I've been prominent. But what are you going to do the rest of your life? Sit on a beach
Yeah.
and not contribute anymore, or look around and see needs, great
Yeah.
needs around you, maybe even in your family, with a grandchild who's struggling from an addiction, or someone in your neighborhood that could use a mentor, someone
Yeah.
to help, someone you could lift. What choices are you going to make? So it's still hope that that your most important work is still ahead, regardless of
Yeah.
past failures or successes. And also to inspire listeners that life is really about contribution and not accumulation. That was
Yeah.
one of my father's big points in this book, is that life is about contributing to other people. And on people's deathbed, they don't talk about the money they made, or how successful they were. They talk about their relationships with their family,
Yeah.
with the impact that they
That's
have
right.
had, felt like maybe they made a difference, and left a legacy of goodness to others. So
Mm.
that's the
Wow.
challenge, to adopt the crescendo mentality rather than living in diminuendo.
Absolutely. And, again, Cynthia, I mean, there was so much wisdom that you shared today. And, the book, I just applaud you for, finishing up this fantastic masterpiece because it's changed my life. It's, it's kind of put me in the direction. In fact, I even asked my husband, I said, I have three things that I care about. I mean, there's a lot of things that I care about, but there were three areas that I felt like I could make a contribution. And I was surprised what he thought was the one thing that I should make the contribution to. And I thought, that's it, and it's helping and supporting women, of all businesses, and, just really bringing to light women's stories and helping women. And that's the area that I'm going to focus on. So I'm happy to say that I am part of Connected Women of Influence, and I'm on their Sue Rising. I'm actually one of the affiliates for Sue Rising. So I'm excited because it's all about our young women and the contributions that they're making, and what leadership roles they're going to be taking in the future. So there you go, right? Living life in Crescendo.
You found your unique mission, and everybody has something that they are good at or feel drawn to, a cause or need they see, and just be introspective like you were, and ask for feedback from your spouse or friends. What are my talents? What am I good at? And then follow your passion. And what a difference you can make in this world. That's really
absolutely.
incredible.
Each
I
and
admire
every person. Well,
yes,
thank you. And I admire what you're doing too, Cynthia. And, continue to, just shine, like I said, shine the light. The book is, it's a masterpiece. I highly recommend that our audience go out and get the book. I've told lots of friends about it. So now you've met Cynthia here on Luminary Leaders Live. And Cynthia, I wish you, continued success. Thank you again for being one of our premium episodes here. And I think that this is very important information that people can take with them and really apply it to, now in their lives.
What an honor to be on your show. And you've got a wonderful, you're doing great work through this. So I appreciate it. It's inspiring. Thanks,
Well,
Shelley.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Cynthia. And congratulations on your new grandbabies, the two little girls. Congratulations to you and your family.
To love them and get to
yeah. All right. And we want to thank our followers and our subscribers. And, if you're just catching the episode, please go back and watch the beginning. It's well worth your time. And here with Cynthia Covey Haller. And again, we want to thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks, Shelley.
Thank you, Cynthia.